secretary upstairs here. The spinning wheel is not original, but it was one like Hannah Grant that was said that she brought one from Point Pleasant where they were living before they came to Georgetown. So it was probably like that or similar. And Christine will tell you about the wonderful winding tool.
Yes, we measure yarn by a skein of yarn, which is 40 yards, and this is called a weasel, and 40 turns around the weasel is a skein of yarn. So how does the weaver know, or the person know when they've gotten their 40 turns? There's an ingenious device in here. It's like a gear for a clock in here, and after 40 turns,
Bless you.
it pops.
Thank you.
So the weasel pops after 40 turns, and so round and round the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. Pop goes the weasel. Comes from this.
Wow. Here we thought it was just a song. It didn't make any sense.
This is what it derives from.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
awesome.
Are these two rooms the original?
From 1828, so this is above the parlor.
That's what I
And
thought.
so the parlor and the entry hall and these two rooms were the last additions to the house in 1828. So when Ulysses was 6, the whole house was totally finished inside and out. And his last sibling was his second sister, and she was born the year he graduated from West Point. High school, at the age of 17. So the family was spread out because Hannah didn't have time to do anything but what she was required. I don't know if you ever noticed or had the chance to turn the spindle of an old bed like this, but these turn intentionally, not a mistake, so that in the evening, if it's warm, people would roll up the coverlet to keep it off the floor and get it off the bed when they didn't need the extra bed warmth. And if they get chilly in the middle of the night, which we do sometimes,
They could always reach down and grab
just
it.
unroll it
That's
to
a
cover
good
up.
idea.
Because, even cleaning things was difficult. And you had to tighten the ropes on the bed. This is actually called a bed key. And they were either made pointed like this one or flat and blunt. And so this bed was made with pegs. And they would reach in the side where it was closest to the rope at the end where it's knotted. And they would twist it and bring up the slack and then hold it while someone ties the side. And you can stay in a bed and breakfast if you look them up and sleep on a rope bed. You know it's comfortable.
And there we get the expression sleep tight.
Sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite. Why? Because straw was used to make the bedding and it had ticks in it. And you sew by hand, don't get scared, they're not there. And the feathers, when you think about how many feathers it would take to even make a pillow, which we can still buy feather pillows, but they had mites in them and they can bite. So sleep tight was tighten the ropes and don't let the bed bugs bite, because they really were, until they were all dead. I don't know the life expectancy of these insects, but you check it out and know you're gonna get bitten before it's over. So we'll take you through the rest of the room, but knowing that this did have carpeting and wallpaper, and these children coming through the house, and visitors and family and workers. This wall we call this our magic door, because this doorway was always open. We don't know if it originally had a door, but it was always accessible. And the state of Ohio wanted to seal the wall completely forever. And we said, no mom of the house, like Hannah Grant, would want to come up 2 separate staircases to just find her way into 3 different rooms. So they left it on a hinge. So watch your step as you come down. And as soon as you step down, you're in the room above where you walked in from outside, when it was just a 2-room, 2-story house. All the woodwork and everything is original. You're welcome to go in. The state of Ohio decided to make this just a little study area. The door is original into the main room. The step down is original.
Spend money to restore it?
Well, yeah, I think that everybody has a different way of interpreting the way things were, but we're mothers, and we know about stairways and having a second floor, and with only 3 rooms, you wouldn't want to have to go up 2 separate staircases. It didn't make any sense. They didn't fight us very long, but they left the door hinged. This is the first bedroom in the house, like I said, above the room where you walked in. The fireplace hearth are original, 1823. You can see that the ceiling and all around the walls is not totally square. And Christine informed me that with this first couple of rooms with hickory, and you split hickory and hardwood out by hand, it's not plain, so it's not perfectly square and sharp. So even those tiny little pieces were important to building just even the first 2 rooms of the house.
So they had laths back in the day?
Yeah,
Ah.
many, even in the early 1900s, there's still a lot of lath in older homes. You can get those fancy 2x4s very early.
They got a piece.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
it's left exposed. So imagine the time it would take to cut down the timbers and prepare to build a couple of rooms, all the while trying to get the tannery business started with one little boy and a growing family. This is another bed key, and you can see that the ropes come through on flat boards. So hooking up to this was the same task. And when you would put it, it goes fitting on this side. If you put it in and turn, you can see where it raises the bedding. Well, if it got a lot looser, you'd have to do it. Or you'd be sleeping in a pit. And this is once again another beautiful handmade bed that did not belong to them, but they would have been able to roll up the coverlet as well. And the young boys and Ulysses and his younger brothers would be sleeping this way, so they had room for everybody. It would be nothing to have 5 or 6 children or young people in the bed at the same time, with your poor little legs against those hard rails. Puff up those feathers. And the wonderful way that they created blinds in those days with canvas fabrics and just tied them to roll up and hold them at a level on the side.
Oh, look at that.
Isn't that ingenious?
That is, yeah.
I thought it was really smart. Small fireplace with original hearth brick, and I guess the embers might have just popped out. But you couldn't build a great big fire, but if you had the best wood, and you had a lot of hickory and oak that burns a long time, you could keep that fire going a little bit more easily than other woods. As you peek out the window, you can see that wonderful 2-seater outhouse. So you could go out together or let a friend in if they were desperate to use the bathroom. It's raining?
Yes,
Oh.
it started raining as we were coming in.
It looked like it wanted to.
People often wonder about privacy too, like were outhouses co-ed, and a lot of them were just like this one, anybody could go in. But the women had their long skirts that could always cover them, and they would be totally covered. And the guys had their long shirts that basically they came down to their knees. They could drop their pants and still be covered up to their knees. So there was modicum of privacy using the outhouse.
My mom has a seat out of an outhouse. It's a 2-seater,
Yeah,
but the 1 seat is small for
for a
kids.
child, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, we've lost our original seat. So we don't have any seat out there now.
Oh.
I don't think so.
But we did have it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they'll bring it back. Maybe they're making copies to sell to nice little folks like you who want to restore a little shed and make it into an outhouse. You're
Yeah.
welcome. I'll let you know. Give us your number.
Yeah.
We actually have an outhouse.
This is, in the good old days, they didn't waste anything, and everything had a use where they found one for it, including the guts of animals and the ligament that made these wonderful ropes. Try pulling that. Try really pull hard. I mean, you can see where you would never break that with your hand.
Yeah.
And that's how they would sew the leather goods together. And that's how they were made to last as well.
Oh wow, that's
That's
so
something but from animal ligament.
wow.
Now, don't throw it up.
Oh, it's silky.
Yes. I don't know how they made it. Christine, that's your job now.
Just stripping
Help us figure, just stripping it out.
Stripping the ligaments.
But what keeps it?
Fibrous.
Oh, so there would be long
Really?
pieces
Right,
and
right,
short pieces.
right.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. And this, real tortoiseshell, real turtle shells. In those days, if there was one that died or had a loss of its shell, they would make real tortoiseshell combs, not just plastic stirred into a pot made into new sunglasses like we do today.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's cool.
Isn't that
What do you
neat?
think the floor
So that's
is?
almost 200 years old.
I don't know.
Imagine trying to get
Grain is so tight. I don't
in
think it's-
between there. I
don't
mean,
think
how do you
it's
do that
tight.
without breaking it,
No.
you know?
But all wood was much tighter grain
Yeah.
back in the day. But yeah, this is the original floor.
Yeah,
And if you
the
look under the
Yeah, I've
bed,
seen them making them on some show
Oh,
one
have you?
time.
you can
Yeah.
see the hole that Jesse filled up where the ladder used to come up
Yeah.
to get to
Six
this room.
boards filled in the opening that they climbed up and down the stairs as only access to this room until 1828. So as I said, the room where you walked in from outside, no doubt had beds eventually. And this was the only room until they finished the front of the house when Ulysses was 6. So, busy family, making a living, helping the neighbors, and trying to do everything they did to the best of their ability, for certain. This is a newer leather, and we know for a fact that leather is basically waterproof. So what better product to make boots and shoes from than leather, and many other things like leather jackets and saddles and bridles and all the things that were made from leather. One of these days we'll have a list for you when you come back, all the things made from leather, because I have a list of all things made from a goat. So if you eat pepperoni, eat the goat. That's the one I remember best. Anyway, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them for you. But Ulysses certainly spent more time here than any place in his lifetime, and considered Georgetown his home, but considered his life rather uneventful. But it became very eventful. And as we kick you downstairs, we'll tell you a little bit about his presidency and about how the poor guy died from smoking his cigars. But watch your step going down. As you look down the steps were stained by the state, but they're 1828, and nothing was ever changed except they affixed a lip on the third step down, because they were never altered or refinished.
But use the handrail.
Yes, please use the rail. And I'll open the door and that'll bring the light in like ash. Not quite like a light bulb. Please take your time.
You can feel that lift.
Yes, they didn't do that good a job, did they?
That third step, that's the one she's talking about,
The
baby.
third step.
Feel the lift.
Yeah.
Think about this being an 1828 Cadillac. Jesse was hardworking, and so were those people. So they didn't need, TV and radio and too many toys to play with, because they were busy. Did you guys sign in that you're here?
Yeah.
Good. They told us, somebody told us that last week we had guests from Mexico and a van with 8 people from Japan.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
We usually get folks from Great Britain, and last year we had a couple from Germany that came with an interpreter to tour Grant's home. Lots and lots of people, even in Europe, are interested in the Civil War and our presidents.
Yeah, and Summit will tell you a little bit now about Grant and his presidency and his death, but everything on this table is free, and then we do have the gift shop in there,
Okay.
so please help yourselves to
Okay.
those. Yeah, but Grant was a reluctant president, and really didn't want to run for president. The first 3 years after the Civil War, he was working Reconstruction in the South, and the Southerners loved him because he was helping them rebuild what had been destroyed, and the Northerners loved him because he'd won the war, and they convinced him to run for president, and he did, and he won very well.
Yes.
More people.
Won by a landslide.
Yeah, and they actually had thought he might run the third time, but he did not want to. He was totally done. But hello, guys.
Welcome.
Well,
He'd had too much of that job.
yeah. So we're just kind of finishing up in the middle of one tour, so if you guys want to sign in,
Okay.
maybe we'll just keep talking and we'll
That's
do it
fine.
like a continuing circle thing.
Yes, we're on a rotating
Yeah.
shift, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're
You guys
happy,
did
we're
a
happy that
good
you
job.
Thank you. No worries.
Thanks.
It's almost
Thanks.
like you personally knew him.
Well, you feel like you do,
Yeah.
and the humility of Grant was so wonderful, and he was such a dedicated man to his wife and children.
Yeah.
And Christine can tell you a bit, because I love it when she tells it, but after the presidency of 2 terms, while he was president of the United States, he would go take his horse and buggy, and he would ride into downtown DC, and he would go into the Willard Hotel, which you can still go to. It's been on the Food Network. It's having great food. So if you guys want to go, I'll go with you. And he would go really in those, even in the mid 1800s, he would go and sit in the lobby and smoke a cigar. And when people recognized him, they'd come up and discuss things going on in the world or in their communities that was interesting or necessary to their thoughts. And that's where the very first term lobbyist was ever used, was Grant taking people's requests and interests in the federal government and issues going on for them in the lobby of the Willard Hotel. So now we have highly paid lobbyists,
Right.
but he was the first one to entertain citizens' comments and opinions in the hotel lobby. One time he was at an event in DC, and he was on his way home to the White House, and he was stopped for speeding by a police officer with his horse and wagon. Christine informed me, I think it was each block had a different speed limit. Is that how it
And
worked?
they were determined by walk, trot, or gallop. So if you were galloping in a walking area, that was a speeding ticket.
So he got stopped, and this young police officer said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. President. If I had known it was you, I would have never stopped you." And Ulysses said, his father said he was honest to a fault. And he said, "Well, to the contrary, young man, I was speeding, so give me the ticket." So he reluctantly gave Grant the ticket. But part of it was confiscate the vehicle. So Ulysses, wherever he was, walked back to the White House.
Oh, wow.
So honest to a fault.
And another brief Willard Hotel story. Now, Grant was really a very humble guy, which a lot of people don't necessarily know. But when he was sworn in as Lieutenant General, he was invited by Lincoln to Washington, D.C. He came from the battlefield wearing a duster. He had his 12-year-old son with him, arrived on the train, got off the train, went to the Willard Hotel, and said, "I'd like a room here. I'm here for an event tomorrow." He walked into the Willard, and the desk clerk said, "Well, we've got a big thing happening tomorrow. We're pretty well booked." "Well, I guess we do have a room way up on the top floor, but there's no bathroom. You'll have to use a bathroom way down the hall." And Grant said, "Well, that will be just fine." So the clerk turned the ledger across to Grant, and he signed it, Ulysses S. Grant, Galena, Illinois. The clerk took a look at it and went, "Oh my gosh, no, we've got the president's suite for you, sir." And of course, that's where he stayed. But that was Grant, just very, very humble and not putting on airs at all. Yeah, and then Grant served after he was president for 2 terms. He took his family on a world tour. He loved to tour, and you'll learn as we go through the tour how he loved to head out in the world. He loved to head out on trails that nobody else had been on. And there was a fellow who had built a steamship, and during the Civil War, the tourist trade between Europe and the States had really fallen to nothing. And he thought it would be wonderful PR if Grant could ride his steamship over to Europe to get the tourist trade going. So Grant did, with an entourage of about 20 people, including a reporter who wrote stories the whole way. And for 3 months, Grant traveled around Europe and around the Mediterranean with this wonderful steamship. It was like 450 feet long, and had 200 guys to crew it. And then the guy at the steamship company said, "Well, we kind of need to start making money with our tourist trade now. We'll take our ship back." But Rutherford B. Hayes was president then, and he saw the wonderful job that Ulysses was doing promoting the United States of America, basically being an ambassador to the world. So for the next 2 years, Grant and his entourage traveled around the world. They literally circumnavigated the globe. And under Rutherford B. Hayes, a series of different ships. And finally, Grant returned home and settled in New York City for a while. And then Selma can tell the story how he lost all of his money.
Yes, it was sad. You know, when you're a general or an officer, you find out that if you have any kind of job at all, you give out direction and orders, and you expect them to be followed. So that's exactly what Grant did during the Civil War. That's exactly what Grant did as president. So people talk about how his presidency had a lot of problems. Well, doesn't everybody's presidency have problems? If you put someone in a position, they're not doing it, what do you do? If you're not doing your job, what do they do to you?
Fire you.
They fire you, or they ask you to leave because they want the best person for the job. Well, that happened with Ulysses as well. But certainly he always did his best and always tried to do whatever he thought was right. And it was always about the country and about, the people in it. Well, when he when he got sick, or when he was in this, his son, one of his older son was in a partnership in an investment company, stock brokerage firm. And his partner's last name was Ward. So there's a place you can look on the internet and see the building, Grant and Ward. So Ulysses' son came to his dad and said, "Dad, if you want to really make money with your money, you could invest it in our company. We're really doing well, and we're helping all of our clients, make money." So Ulysses, trusting, gave his son a bulk of his money, whatever that might have been then. And his son came back to him later and said, "Dad, Ward has squandered the money, and he's gone." So all of the clients lost all their money. Bernie Madoff of the 1800s.
Wow.
So Ulysses then didn't have hardly any money. He was living in New York City, where he had many friends and had gone to school in New York. And he was writing articles for a newspaper and magazine, and at the same time, we all have hard luck at times, he was also diagnosed with mouth cancer from smoking cigars. Even then, they knew it was cancer from cigars. So his friend Mark Twain, who had asked him many years before, why don't you write your memoir? He couldn't figure out why anybody wanted to read it. You know, it was wartime and he couldn't imagine. So he did start writing his memoir as a way to hope he wasn't going to live long and perhaps his family could make money from the sale of the books. That's probably exactly what happened. Paparazzi was bothering him so much in the city that he and his family and his doctor, who was so dedicated to him, they all moved out to Mount McGregor, out in the countryside, away from the city, and Grant's doctor attended him there until he died. But his family gathered around him, and they were all busily helping him gather all the papers, because think about it, they were writing everything by hand. He wrote every page by hand. Well, after he passed away in 1885, July the 3rd, I believe, at the age of 63, Mark Twain took all those writings, can only imagine how many pages, and had them produced in a 2-volume book of his life. They were $50 a set. And the salesman, without even a book, which you can do that today, they took pre-orders for the book. And people were giving up a lot of money to order those books when they weren't even printed. And then Mark Twain had such respect for Grant and his family that he secured a little bit larger percentage of proceeds for Mrs. Grant and her family than was normally given to other people. And her first royalties check was $450,000 shortly after
Wow. Money back
1885.
then.
So believe it or not, she was a multimillionaire if that was today. And when Grant passed away living in the Mount McGregor, nothing in that building or that cottage was ever taken out or removed. The only thing they had for pain then, which many times now used, is morphine. Morphine makes people sleepy, and he didn't hardly ever take any because his task, he wanted to complete the memoir. So he suffered greatly, was reduced to a whisper and hardly talking. In the funeral processional, there were over 100,000 people in the processional, and many of the people in the processional and watching were Southern soldiers who wore even their tattered uniforms, and 2 of them were pallbearers.
2 generals.
2 generals from the South were pallbearers for Grant, which shows that they all knew they were doing their duty, fighting a war that was horrible for every single person, and greatly respected Grant. And then over 1 million lined the streets of New York City. And there was a temporary tomb while they were finalizing the design for the tomb we see today on Riverside Drive. But it's the largest tomb ever built for any president of the United States of America, which says quite a bit about the quiet guy who never cared what anybody thought about him, who was really dedicated to his country and to his family, but would never have dreamed we'd still be talking about him today.
So he's buried in Cincinnati?
In Grant's tomb. in
Grant's
New York.
tomb in New York
Oh,
City.
in New York City. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
his parents are buried at what's that cemetery?
Spring Grove. yeah,
Spring Grove
Cincinnati.
Cemetery in
Okay.
Cincinnati.
And they lived out their lives in Covington, Kentucky.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll take
for those of you
guys.
who, yeah, go ahead, and
you
please
guys.
register your names. We love that people come and we have to know where everybody comes to.